Iran has entered a new and dangerous chapter, and at the center of it is one of the most secretive figures in the entire Iranian system, Mojtaba Khamenei. For years, he lived in the shadows of power. He was rarely seen, rarely heard, and almost never placed at the center of the public stage. But now, after the death of his father Ali Khamenei and in the middle of a regional war that is already shaking oil markets and military calculations across the Middle East, Mojtaba Khamenei has moved from the background to the very top of the Iranian state. The question is no longer whether he matters. The question is what kind of leader he is about to become, and what his rise means for Iran, for the region, and for the wider world. Mojtaba Khamenei is not a new man inside the system. He is a new face for the outside world, but inside Iran's power structure, he has long been viewed as one of the most influential men in the room. He was born in Mashhad, studied in Qom, fought as a young man during the Iran-Iraq War, and rose not through elections, ministries, or public office, but through quiet proximity to power. Unlike many political figures, he did not build his name in speeches or campaigns. He built it through relationships, loyalty networks, and deep access to the machinery that actually keeps the Islamic Republic standing. That is why many analysts describe him not as a public statesman, but as a gatekeeper of the system. And that word matters, gatekeeper, because Mojtaba Khamenei's reputation was shaped by what he could influence without appearing in front of a microphone. He is widely described as being close to Iran's Revolutionary Guards, the force that is not only military, but also political, economic, ideological, and deeply embedded in the logic of the state. This matters because it tells us something very important about the kind of leadership now taking shape in Tehran. This is not the arrival of a reformer, not the arrival of a conciliatory figure, and not the arrival of a man trying to soften Iran's image before the world. Everything about his profile suggests continuity in hardness, continuity in security thinking, and continuity in confrontation. But the timing of his rise makes the story even bigger. Mojtaba Khamenei did not take power in a calm transition. He emerged during one of the most explosive moments the region has seen in years. Reports say he was himself lightly wounded in the opening phase of the war. That detail matters not only because of his personal condition, but because of what came after it. Silence. He did not immediately appear in public. He did not come on screen. He did not show his face to prove control. In a region where symbols matter almost as much as missiles, that silence created a vacuum. And in that vacuum, every question became louder. Was he injured more seriously than admitted? Was he being protected? Was the system buying time? Or was Tehran deliberately crafting a new image of power, one that speaks without showing itself? Then came the message. The first statement attributed to Mojtaba Khamenei was finally released. But even then, he did not appear on camera. The message was read by a state television presenter. And the content was not cautious. It was defiant. It signaled that Iran would continue to use the Strait of Hormuz as leverage, continue pressuring the region, and continue framing the conflict in terms of sacrifice, revenge, and resistance. That first message told the world something very clearly. This new leadership does not intend to begin with restraint. It intends to begin with pressure. That matters because the Strait of Hormuz is not just another regional talking point. It is one of the most strategically important energy choke points on Earth. A threat there is never only a military threat. It is also an economic threat, an inflation threat, a shipping threat, and a political threat. When Tehran signals that Hormuz will remain part of its leverage market. When Tehran signals that Hormuz will remain part of its leverage, markets listen. Tanker routes react. Traders react. Governments react. The price of oil reacts. And ordinary people, even thousands of kilometers away, eventually react too, because higher energy prices rarely stay in one sector. They spread into transport, food, manufacturing, logistics, and household budgets. This is why Mojtaba Khamenei's emergence matters even to people who do not follow Iranian politics. A man who spent years largely outside the public spotlight is now speaking through one of the world's most dangerous fault lines. His first major signal to the world was not reconciliation. It was strategic pressure. And because of the conditions under which he rose, he may feel he has little room to look weak. Think about the pressures on him. He inherits a wartime leadership position. He inherits a controversial succession. He inherits a legitimacy problem, because many inside and outside Iran will see a son replacing his father and ask whether this looks less like a revolutionary republic and more like a political dynasty. He inherits a public visibility problem, because he is not a charismatic mass communicator. And he inherits a credibility problem, because being hidden at a moment like this invites speculation. That combination can be dangerous. Leaders in that position often compensate with hardness. Not always because they are strong, but because they cannot afford to look fragile. That may be the most important thing to understand about Mojtaba Khamenei right now. The tone is severe not only because the region is on fire, but because the new leader may believe severity is part of survival. In that sense, the real story may not simply be that Iran has a new supreme leader. The real story may be that Iran has entered a phase where invisibility and escalation exist side by side. A leader who is physically absent from the screen, but politically present through threat, symbolism, and strategic disruption. And that creates a very serious question for the Middle East. If Mojtaba Khamenei rules through a tighter alliance with security institutions, if his instinct is to project resolve through confrontation, and if Hormuz remains an instrument of pressure, then this is not just a leadership change. It is a signal that the next phase of the conflict could be shaped by a more insulated, more security-driven, and potentially more unpredictable style of command. For neighboring states, that means more uncertainty. For global markets, more fragility. For Washington and its allies, more pressure. And for Iran's own people, it may mean that the system becomes even less transparent at exactly the moment when clarity is needed most. So who is Mojtaba Khamenei? He is not simply the son of Iran's former leader. He is the product of the Islamic Republic's inner circle, a man shaped by ideology, protected by security networks, and elevated in the middle of war. He represents continuity, but under more unstable conditions. He represents power, but power that feels the need to prove itself quickly. He represents a state trying to show that even after a major shock, it can still command fear, discipline, and strategic disruption. And that is why this moment matters. Because when a hidden figure steps into open history during a regional crisis, the first words matter, the first silences matter, and even the decision not to appear on camera matters. Mojtaba Khamenei has now entered the center of the story. The Middle East is already moving around him. Oil markets are already reacting around him. Military planners are already calculating around him. The world is no longer asking whether he is influential. The world is asking what his influence will cost.